America is perhaps the greatest success story that the world has ever known. And here I am, the grandson of former slaves. I encourage Americans everywhere to run away from economic slavery and run toward the blessings of liberty guaranteed by our Constitution. So join me, America, as we travel the Underground Railroad and we seek to free ourselves from the slavery of tyranny.
Pre-1960, most African Americans were Republicans. After Martin Luther King was freed from jail by John F. Kennedy, the African American vote has gone Democratic. What exactly did we get exchanged for our 95% Democratic swaying vote? We gave up 3-to-1 odds in abortion.
14 million black babies have died since 1973.
Dependent on welfare systems.
They begin to take young women and they begin to tell the young women, well, we will give you money, you just stay home. But what if I want to get married? You lose your benefits.
When you remove the black man out of the house, the likelihood of the young black men going to jail increases by 60%. This is what this party has given on a platter to African Americans. Sometimes you can't tell the difference between now and 200 years ago. And we, by 95%, support this.
Going back to the plantation, you have a group of people on the plantation, and we've run away. We ran away. We got free.
The more the government gives us, the more debt and more control we accumulate.
But here we come back to the plantation, and we're telling them, y'all can be free.
Anyone that comes along and talks to me about taking away what I've given you, they must be evil. They got to be Republicans.
You have 40, 50 years, an entire culture of people. This is all they know. They don't know anything else.
Because see, in the black community, there's always somebody's got to keep them niggas in control.
You could call it slavery in the slave quarters or now in the urban ghettos of America.
I think life is about our future and making decisions that you feel like will serve you best.
We have an opportunity in this nation as blacks that we could not find anywhere else.
We the people are still in charge of this country.
We've joined up with these people who are haters and they're racist, but they're not. All we're doing is telling the others that are still on the plantation, you can be free.
This is not the land of guarantees, but it's the land of opportunity.
The sky's the limit as to what we can achieve here.
But when you say racism is the problem, you put the power for your future in someone else's hands.
What we need in this country today is more black men to confront it. Because you as a white man, you can't confront it. Right now, if you said anything to the black community, you're going to be accused of racism.
I guess I'm racist too, right?
Tyranny is colorblind.
White or black.
It will control you. Run, America! Run faster! Don't give up! Don't give in! Are you tired yet? Run harder! Friends, I need you to understand something. There is an evil among us, an evil among Americans and our way of life. And that evil is called multiculturalism. That is something that will destroy the fiber of our country if we don't pay attention. You see, there are those who do in fact covet what we have. They want to come here to our country. And I need to tell you, they don't want Americanism. They want our stuff. They want what we have, but they do not want to assimilate. As all immigrants have done, they do not want to become American. You and I in this room tonight, we understand, or this afternoon, we understand the American dream. And we understand what that means. The American dream. Our movie, Runaway Slave, goes deeply into and examines the root of the American dream. We examine the freedom that we have, and we examine the idea that America is not a land of guarantees. America is a land of opportunity. And you here in this room today, graduates of LPR, know what is possible in this country. And you know what is necessary to preserve our nation and our freedom. But I bring you a warning. I bring a warning to all conservatives, and that is this. It is time that we take on a different type of posture. It is time that we take on a posture of offense. For too long, we have been in a defensive posture. And the enemies of conservatism, the enemies of the republic, have been assaulting us. They have been abusing us. And they have been insulting us. Matt and I, over the last couple of years, have been called all types of names from all quarters of our country. That's okay. But we must understand one thing. It is time for us to man up as Americans and go on the offensive as conservatives and defend who we are and who we stand for. You apologize far too much. We have the truth. The progressive liberals will always try and put you on the defensive. But I tell you this, stop being on the defensive. Be who you are. Stand on the principles that did, in fact, cause this country to be the greatest country the world has ever known. There was a time in our nation when we were certain that we could defeat any enemy, any foe. And we could always identify our enemies. And we were certain that whatever enemy that attacked us from without, we would be able to repel that enemy. But I come to bring a startling revelation to us now. And that is that our enemies, as was said before I came to the podium, are very unidentifiable. And as a former president of the NAACP in Garland, Texas, in a time when we were suing the school district in federal court, I have seen both sides of this argument. The reason I broke with them is because I came to the realization that the agenda for them was not to just control my agenda, but the agenda for them was to control me and then to use me as a tool to control a block of people. That is the liberal progressive method. And their methodology has in fact controlled a block of people for over 50 years. And if you continue to sleep, if you continue not to pay attention to what's going on, then the very method that they have used to enslave that group of people, believe me, they have the same designs on the entire country. And my friends, tonight, this afternoon, if in fact we are unsuccessful in our efforts to take back the White House and the Senate here in 2012, then our country will be fundamentally changed. And we cannot afford for her to go away. That's why we need a leader who can gain respect again of both our friends and our foes. That's why it is important that we choose the right candidate in this presidential election. Americans are tired of apologizing for who we are. And I tell you right now, we do not need to bow down or apologize to anyone. We are the greatest nation on the face of this earth. We need a leader that our friends and foes will respect. We need a leader that will put swagger back into the American stride. And we need a leader who is proud to be an American every day of his life, not just when it's convenient. We need a patriot. We need someone who will not bow down to anyone. Now, that leads me to our children. And if I may for a moment tell you that I'm very concerned about our children. I was talking to Lee and Karen and Sherry and Don the other night at dinner. And we had a very interesting conversation about our children. And just as I said earlier, that there are people who come here to this country and they want our stuff. Well, I want to tell you something. While we slept, those who are in our classrooms, who we have entrusted to teach our children, have poisoned their minds. While we slept, our children have been taught by those who have been schooled in socialist doctrine that America is not an exceptional country. Our children have been poisoned, not just by Hollywood, but by the use of your tax dollars in public schools, and even in the literature that you buy for them, that America is the problem in this world. And just as we try to expose in Runaway Slave that America is still a great land of opportunity, your children, many of them, your grandchildren for sure, are under the impression that somehow you sitting in this room are wild-eyed, hysterical people whose thinking is antiquated. Your children, believe it or not, we came to the conclusion they want our stuff. And even though we don't like to think about this, there are some who are waiting for the demise of the free market system, the demise of capitalism, so they can get our stuff. But this is a hard thought that I'm about to share with you. And that is, unfortunately, our children We have been pursuing happiness. We've been pursuing life. We've been pursuing liberty. And we've been making them happy. But our children, their happiness has depended upon us. And they, unfortunately, do not have the same drive, the same determination to get for themselves what we were willing to sacrifice to get. The old saying in Louisiana comes from an old song. It says, Mama may have, Papa may have, but God bless the child who's got his own. Simple idea, but it is one that is missing in our children. They don't want to get their own. They want to have yours. And they want to have it now. My grandfather, a man who was a great man. But if you wrote his name on the back of this wall, he would not be able to read it. His father was a slave. My dad had a third-grade education. Here I am, 2 degrees, standing before people all across this country that I have never met, talking about the very same things that that man who could not read taught us. That was by the sweat of your brow, the work of your hands, and the determination that God gives you the strength to accomplish. I stand here before you as a free man in America. The American spirit is built on such stories. But if we allow socialist tendencies to invade, I don't know about you, but I stand here saying with every fiber of my being, I will refuse to surrender our country to socialism, and I will stand against it with every ounce of my being. I refuse to watch and sit by as our Constitution is trampled upon. And we must determine today that we will defend the most divinely breathed document that our country have, and that is the American Constitution. We must defend it against foreign and domestic foes. And we send this message to this administration. I stand firmly with Cardinal Dolan now in saying that Americans will not yield and we will not comply to any legislation that is against our consciousness and that is against our moral values. We stand together as Catholics, Protestants, Jews, Gentiles, all over this country. And it is important that we understand that if they come for the Catholics, they will come for the Jews, and they will come for the Protestants, even the agnostics. If we yield now, we might as well prepare to continue to yield until there is nothing left to give up.
Ronald Reagan said it best, that our freedom is only one generation from perishing. This is why when Matt and I met in 2009, this is why 2.9 million Americans marched on Washington, because we sensed something was terribly wrong in this land. We sensed that if we did not speak up, then there was something that we could lose, that we could never regain. And I stand here to tell you that I was proud to be a Tea Partier then, and I'm proud to be a Tea Partier now. Runaway Slave is a movie about a people trapped in a system. I grew up in Louisiana. I'm very proud of it. My roots run deep into Cane River. I'm very familiar with Creole culture. My family is of that culture. My father was one. Great-grandfather and great-grandfather were all of that culture. There was a system at one time in our country that in fact supported slavery. And these were people who were locked in a system with freedom all around them. The master was free. His friends were free. And they could see that that was a reality. And every once in a while, there was one who said to himself or herself, I want that. I want that freedom. And they mustered the courage, say to themselves, whatever it takes, I want freedom. They would run away. They would leave the plantation system through the perils of reaching freedom. It was a dangerous and very difficult course to take. But whatever it cost, even if it cost them their lives, they were determined that they would run away from that system and achieve freedom. Many of them, like Harriet Tubman, Frederick Douglass, once they achieved it, they would return and they would tell those who they had left in bondage, you can be free. But do you know what happened when they returned, telling the others about their freedom? Many times, those who had that slave mentality and a plantation way of thinking, they would tell the overseers that they had troublemakers in their midst. My friend Herman Cain was called a bad apple by Harry Belafonte. And I tell you today that that type of thinking is exactly what the progressive left wants to keep a certain group of people believing. That people like myself, people like Herman, if you place that bad apple in the barrel with the rest of them, they're going to spoil those who we have already in this barrel. In America,
Americans, I say to you that as one who was a part of that system, one who ran away from that system and found freedom for myself, as I now return to tell others that you can be free, the same thing happens to me as did to them 150 years ago. But except the dogs that are sick on them now, and the overseers that are sick on us now, the dogs are no longer four-legged hounds. They're two-legged hounds in the shape of Al Sharpton and Jesse Jackson and people like that. Those are the ones who would capture the runaways. But yet freedom is all around us. And we must, in fact, secure it. My friends, whether you came here on the Mayflower, or whether you came here on slave ships, America has never been a place that guaranteed anything to anyone. Whether you were escaping the tyranny of King George to try a land unknown, a place untested and untried, or whether you came here and found yourself on the tyranny of a plantation, the same courage still has to be mustered in anyone who will enjoy the fruits of our great land. So, my friends, I encourage all of you with the Runaway Slave movie to flee economic slavery and run toward the blessings of liberty. Now, in closing, I want to say to you, as I look out over this crowd, Lord knows He has given me an opportunity, a pastor or a preacher of 32 years, pastor of 27 years. I've had to leave my pulpit because of my personal convictions. In a predominantly black church that I pastored, my deacons came to me and they told me just about a year and a half ago, 2 years almost, Pastor, we don't like this Tea Party thing that you're involved in. And I don't know about you, I'm Southern Baptist, and in the Southern Baptist church, a preacher's only one deacon's meeting away from being unemployed. But they came to me, and I'd been there for 9 years. We had just built a brand new church. The old one was sort of off the beaten path, and we built a beautiful building. And I don't know about here in this neck of the woods, but down in my neck of the woods, a $1.5 million building is a pretty substantial building in our neck of the woods. And the Lord had been gracious enough to let us do that. And then I called Matt and I told him about this idea that I had for Runaway Slave, and Matt, I need some help. And he got behind me on the project. And when they heard about the Runaway Slave movie, if you think that they didn't like Tea Party, they lost their minds. This Runaway Slave thing. So we came to the parting of the ways. And I guess sort of like Moses, I led them up to the promised land, but I never went in with them. But it was time for me to leave. Matt and I in Tel Aviv about 6 months ago, we were able to start the first tea party in Israel. We call it kosher tea.
Started off with 70 people crowded into a cramped little space, not much bigger than this platform. But now I understand they have grown to over 700. Freedom. There is a thirst for it all across our world. And as I leave you tonight, or this afternoon, I usually speak at night. As I leave you this afternoon, I want you Americans to know from the words of Christ that these words don't fit many other people in our world today, but it does fit you in this room here today. You are the salt of the earth. But if the salt loses its savoriness, savor, its usefulness, then it is good for nothing but to be thrown out, trampled under the foot of men. You are the light of the world. A city that is set up on a hill cannot be hid. So let your light so shine before men that they will see your good works, America. Glorify our Creator, who gave us the rights that we have. And as I travel around this country, sometimes shaking unfriendly hands, sometimes finding myself in perilous places, it would be good to know that there are people right here in Colorado who are wishing me well and praying for us. And so I have just one more question for you. Are there any patriots in this room here today? Is there anyone here who will stand up for American values? Is there anyone here who will stand up for the Republic? Stand up for God and country? Then Americans, stand up! Stand up! Stand up! God bless you. God bless America.
We made a lot of progress, but we're not gonna let you turn back the clock.
What these people are race hustlers. That's how they derive their power, by making them believe that the white man has the foot on their neck.
White people have allowed themselves to be intimidated by the so-called civil rights leaders. If they disagree with black people, then they are racist.
Are we free at last?
Devil is a lie. No, we're not.
This is the kind of stuff that causes trouble. You're digging in a wound that's trying to heal. The Tea Party is racist?
Yes. They are the enemy, man. They are the enemy.
We know how to sucker punch you because we just begun to fight.
Somehow down racial lines, we're still divided. The question has to be why? With all the rumbling that's going on in our nation right now, I've got to find out if there's other people in this country that feel the same way that I do.
We got a new Underground Railroad 2.0. We kind of like the Harriet Tubmans of our day now.
My guest in the studio, C.L. Bryant, the runaway slave.
Guess what? We become the troublemakers. They say we're not really black. How can you be black and be conservative?
If you don't have the right label, then we want to excommunicate you from the community.
What broke down in Black America is just a picture of what's breaking down in the rest of society.
The slippery slope of leftist progressivism that is taking place in America today.
What the liberal Democrats have in mind is to have the government become our God through entitlement programs that shackles people to a system of being dependent.
Statism, government in our homes telling us what to do, when, where, and how.
playing the race card, playing the class warfare card. They want people to stay on that Democrat plantation mindlessly.
You hear the rhetoric that these programs are based on what our ancestors went through. Not only has big government enslaved America's poor, but now we're looking at the extension of government into all communities.
People are still mentally enslaved. We tell them, hey, you can be free.
The Tom Bigby River in Alabama, former pathway of the Underground Railroad. And I hope men everywhere will take the example of those who travel this Underground Railroad. Freedom sometimes comes at a great price. We will live free or die. That's the American spirit.
Will the wounds of the past be our undoing, or will they heal? When time runs out, where will you be? What did you do with the time given?